just a little bit of a warning. This video is really crazy. I'm telling you stories about my mom's mental health. I'm telling you stories about me growing up, and some of them are very sensitive topics. So I apologize if anything I say. Actually, I'm not going to apologize. This is what it is. So, yeah. Hey guys, it's Britt, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk a little bit about me. So, what I mean by that is, I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about what it was like for me growing up and what's kind of built me to be the character that I am right now. I don't know if we're going to get through everything in this one video, so there might be a second part. I'm not sure. There might just be the one. I might just edit it and be good with it. So, growing up for most of my life as a minor, I would say that my life was very, very chaotic, very dysfunctional. Like, there was verbal abuse, physical abuse, like crazy, crazy, crazy. No kid should have to go through what I went through, and I know it still goes on nowadays, and it just sucks that we can't have healthy environments for kids. Like, what's going on with us? Like, I remember from a very early age, my mom being sick. And when I say sick, I don't mean like respiratory infection or viral infection or anything like that. I mean, she suffered from mental illness. And so I feel like my grandma really intervened and helped raise me and my brother, but it wasn't the ideal situation. And what I mean by that is because my aunt also lived with my grandma. And so it was a very dysfunctional relationship because there was alcohol involved. And so, you know, like, it was just not a healthy environment for anybody. There were times growing up when I would have to go visit my mom in the mental institution, in the psych ward. Like, there's a main one down in Provo. They had these huge doors. Like, people would walk around the halls and talk to themselves. Like, it was legit out of something like Girl Interrupted. And so it was very scary, especially being like 10, 11, 12, like still being so young and seeing somebody that you love go through this and not understanding how to deal with your emotions. I think that was the hardest part about dealing with my mom's mental illness is I was not patient, and I was very selfish at that age because I wasn't thinking of other people. Shortly after my mom got married to my stepdad, she started to drink real heavily. And when I was younger, I didn't really notice her mental illness. I think it was mainly when she was drinking that it would come out. And then when she became a full-blown alcoholic, it just kind of like spiraled her life out of control. And so she that's when she started getting committed to the state over and over again. After her divorce, it just kind of, nothing worked out. They were just kind of drinking buddies to begin with, and then he turned to religion and she still kept drinking. So it was just kind of a crazy situation. But one time, you know, I was sitting on the couch and I got a call on the telephone, so I run over and pick it up, and I'm like, hello, and they're like, this is the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Department, and I was like, what can I help you with? And they're like, actually, we were calling because somebody who was my mom has been seen entering in a demo home, and she was like buying like flower arrangements and decorating this place because she thought she won it through a Publishers Clearinghouse ad. So this just kind of shows you how fragile her mental state was. And just looking back, I wish she would have had more people around her that didn't give up on her. You know what I mean? I just wish that I could have been an adult when this happened, because I would be a lot more compassionate and understanding. And yeah. So there's a couple more stories I'm going to share. One of them, it was when my mom was living with my stepdad, and me and my brother had moved back to my grandma's because the situation was so, it just wasn't good because of the drinking and everything. So after we had moved back into my grandma's, we kind of got some kind of normalization aside from dealing with the alcoholism that was in the home. Still, we got a knock on the front door, and I opened it, and there was police surrounding our entire house. And they like kind of pulled me outside because I didn't know what was going on. It was the most terrifying experience. They all had their guns drawn. And it turns out that somebody had called the sheriff and told them that me and my brother were being held hostage in that house. Another crazy story that happened, oh, it's so sad, but I'm telling you guys because I want you guys to experience me as a person, and these are things that I went through, so just as a way to connect and understand, you know what I mean? Another time, my mom was having like an episode. She called the sheriffs and told them that there were dead babies buried in our backyard and that she could hear them. And, you know, she had these kind of like delusions that was like separate from actual reality. She suffered from schizophrenia. So like when I was like, after my grandma had passed away and it was just me and my mom living in the house because my aunt had moved out, she would say things to me like, come and stand over here. And she'd be standing in the doorway by the kitchen and she would say, do you hear that? And I'd walk over there and I would like listen and I wouldn't hear anything. And she's like, I hear the tabernacle choir. Like, so yeah, it made childhood and growing up very difficult, especially not being raised with like a loving father. We don't know who my father was, so that just adds another part to my story that makes it a little more complicated. I would say though that if you have someone in your family that is suffering from mental illness, make sure you are extremely patient with them because it's not their fault that they have whatever is going on inside of them. Like, who knows what makes us have these problems? Like, it's scary to think that, who knows, my mom had it. One day maybe I could develop it. Like, I don't know how these things work. I just know that it sucks. To talk a little bit more about the alcoholism in the family. Growing up when me and my brother were little, my mom did not really drink hard alcohol. She would have like a glass of wine or two every night, but it wasn't anything like out of control. And back then, I feel like life was so perfect. Maybe because that's before everything got so crazy. Living at my grandma's when me and my brother was there, it was always like a full house of family. Like, it was either me, my brother, my grandma, my aunt, sometimes my uncle, sometimes my cousins. Like, my grandma's house was the one that you could count on for help if you needed it. And so, in my family, because me and my brother were raised mostly by my grandma, a lot of the family members kind of resented me and my brother, and they just kind of treated us very poorly. They used to say things to us like, you're just like your mother, or I can't even, like, it's crazy the things they would say. Things that normal, sorry. Things that normal families would not have to talk about. Like there was one time me and my cousins were really close, and I think I was maybe like 13 or 14, and my cousin's mom had called and wanted to talk to her mom, so I was getting ready to hang the phone up, and I heard them start talking about me. And so obviously I listened, and it was just very unpleasant things. I'm not going to repeat them, but it was things that really hurt, and those are things that kids shouldn't have to deal with. Like the homes I grew up in were very, very dysfunctional. And I think that's what's given me such a good head on my shoulders, because I've already basically been through hell growing up. And so I feel like it's also helped with the transition. It's given me the strength I need to actually be myself. And I don't regret going through anything that I've been through growing up, because it's made me, like I was saying, a stronger person. Obviously, I wish I could have changed things a little bit, but even like growing up, me and my brother, we did not get along growing up, and it was constantly fighting, like physical fighting. Like my only defense growing up was kicking him in the nards, and that's what I used to call it back then. So growing up in a house full of alcoholism and all kinds of dysfunction, like my aunt, she used to get so smashed that she would come out yelling at us. Like sometimes she would physically assault us, and there it got to a point when my brother, he wasn't even allowed to be in the house anymore, because she just had so much hate and rage built up towards him that when she would drink, she would like explode and become such a different person. I'm like super fortunate that it wasn't me that was on the other end of her attacks for the most part. It was mainly my brother, and I think it's because he didn't conform to what she wanted. As where me, I was so young, I just kind of did what I was told, you know what I mean? But there did come a time when, after my brother had moved out, and it was just me, sometimes my mom was there, and my aunt and my grandma. My aunt would come out and she'd yell at my grandma, and she would tell her to turn off the damn TV, it was time for bed. And it came to a point when I heard her doing this so many nights in a row that I walked out of my bedroom and I was like, she is not turning the TV off. This is her house and you need to go to bed. Like, that was the very first time I ever stood up for my grandma, and it made my grandma feel uncomfortable because she didn't like confrontation, and she was like, Andy, just go to bed, let's just not do this. And, so it sucks that the abuse was even affecting my grandma. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't even just me and my brother that was getting the brunt of the verbal abuse. It was my grandma also. When I was 12 or 13, we did have a father figure that was kind of around, and, he really did help us out a lot, him and his family. But it ended up turning into like some kind of like sexual abuse, and it kind of makes me uncomfortable talking about it, but it is something that happened. So like, I'm not going to go into any details. I'll just leave it at that. I went to my family, like my grandma, I wrote her a note because I was feeling so ashamed, and I didn't know how to talk about this. Like, so I told my grandma everything, and she didn't believe me. So, like, my family just thought I was crazy like my mom and just dismissed everything that I had told them. But, like, so that just kind of shows you how my family looked at me and my brother. Like, they didn't look at us as I don't know, they didn't look at us as equals to them. They always, I felt like they were constantly trying to make us less than. And you know, it wasn't our fault as kids. We were just children. And you know, if anything, it was the adults' fault for not leading us to being, I don't know, like, that stuff in the home should not have been happening. So that pretty much sums up all the dysfunction and everything that happened in my life growing up as a child. And I'm not telling you guys, I don't need sympathies, I don't need I'm sorries. Like, I've worked through all of this, and that's why I can talk about it without getting emotional. But I just want to share my story with you guys, because there might be somebody out there that's watching this that needs to hear something that I'm saying. Because we're all going through something, and when you look at someone, you might not know what they're going through. They might be able to hide it really well. And, you know, that's kind of what I did growing up. I just kind of kept all my feelings inside because I felt like it wasn't okay to talk about them, that it wasn't okay. And, you know, it is okay. I hope you guys liked my video. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye. 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 Bye.